Okay, all right, here we go. This is session number 110. Session number 110 in Kevin Reed's A Course in Miracles. We are still in chapter 14. Today we are looking at section number 6, Roman numeral 6, VI. It's entitled The Light of Communication, on page 285 in the text. Alrighty then. Let's see what he has to say here. The light of communication. The journey that we undertake together, is the exchange of darkness for light, of ignorance for understanding. Nothing you understand is fearful. It is only in darkness and in ignorance that you perceive the frightening and shrink away from it to further darkness. And yet, it is only the hidden that can terrify, not for what it is, but for its hiddenness. The obscure is frightening because you do not understand its meaning. If you did, it would be clear, and you would be no longer in the dark. Nothing has hidden value, for what is hidden cannot be shared, and so its value is unknown. The hidden is kept apart, but value always lies in joint appreciation. What is concealed cannot be loved, and so it must be feared. All righty then. I'm just going to take that last sentence to think about as we talk about the rest of it. What is concealed cannot be loved, and so it must be feared. And in actuality, what is concealed is our desire to be channels of love, our desire to meet love, right? Our desire to allow love to arise in our awareness. That's ultimately what's been kept apart. Right? What is concealed cannot be loved. Okay? So just think about that. Well, we go back up to sentence number 1. The journey that we undertake together is the exchange of dark for light, of ignorance for understanding. And just a very poetic way of Jesus reminding us that we bring everything, bring all your thoughts to your inner guide, to Jesus, the Holy Spirit. All right? Jesus says this is a journey we're undertaking together. All right? Another part in the text, he'll say, together we have the lamp that will dispel the darkness. All right? This is a journey we undertake together, and it is the exchange of dark for light. All right? The dark is everything that we chose to believe about separation, everything that comes from it. Right? The idea of sin, guilt, and fear, the idea of attack and defend, right? And the whole idea of the world. We dissociate, we project, all those things. That's all part of the darkness. He says, bring it all. Bring it all to me, and we will exchange it for light. All right? He says, nothing you understand is fearful. So if we bring things to Jesus, to Holy Spirit, and say, help me see correctly. Help me shine away the darkness. Then you understand things, and you're not afraid. There's no more fear. There's no more fear of punishment. There's no more fear of anything. Right? Because anything that you understand, you're not afraid of. It is only in darkness and in ignorance that you perceive the frightening, and you shrink away from it to further the darkness. Right? So we shrink away from things. We shrink away. We don't ask. We don't look. Don't look. We don't ask about things. That's shrinking away. And it's just reinforcing the darkness. And yet, it is only the hidden that can terrify. Not for what it is, but for its hiddenness. Okay? It's only the hidden that can terrify. You're a little kid, right? And the closet is closed, the closet in the bedroom, and at night you go to sleep. Oh, I wonder what's in that closet. And you start to let your imagination run away with you. And you start to get afraid. Because you don't know what's in the closet. It's hidden. Right? And then, maybe at some point you ask one of your parents or a guardian or somebody, your older brother or sister, what's in the closet? And he'll tell you, come on, let's look at it together. Right, we open the closet, turn the light on, and you say, oh, I understand. It's just a bunch of pants and shirts and things like that. Right? It's no longer frightening because you understand what's in the closet. Okay? And this is what Jesus wants us to do, is open that closet of our mind, right? That we're afraid to open up and look. I don't want to look. I don't want to go there. You know. And you could see it in your own life. You hear people, they'll even say, oh, I don't want to start crying because then I'll never stop. I don't want to go look at this because it's too horrifying. It's too much of a memory. You know, meanwhile, it's most likely still influencing your present life, right? So this is what Jesus means. Bring every scrap, bring every thought to me, and together we will undertake the exchange of darkness for light. You have a guide who will bring you through this darkness. Right? This entire world is the darkness, okay? I don't want to make you depressed or anything, but that's where it's at. It's just a metaphor. All right? Because understanding, going to the right mind is where the light is. And once you go to the right mind and you're sincerely asking to show me, let me see correctly, you will understand. You'll understand everything, and we do it piecemeal. It seems we bring bits, so you understand a little at a time, until all of a sudden, oh, I understand a lot more. And you're not afraid of things. You don't be afraid, right? So. Nothing has hidden value, and what is hidden cannot be shared. All right? So if we're hiding, way deep down inside, we're hiding who we really are, we can't share it. It's hidden. So nothing that's hidden has any value. All right? The hidden is kept apart, but value always lies in joint appreciation. When we see it together. Okay, what is concealed cannot be loved, and so it must be feared. Right? And who I truly am is being concealed. Right? And so I'm afraid of it. I'm going to be obliterated. Right? I'm not going to exist anymore. I'm not going to have all the things that I think are worthwhile. Right? And you don't just give up everything at once, because that's, you know, some of us have what they call the 1 or 10 personality. You're either don't give anything up or you give everything up. Jesus is saying, bring it to me as it comes up. Bring me all the bits, all the things you're focusing on, and we'll shine the light on it. We'll help you understand exactly what's happening. All right. Paragraph 2, the quiet light in which the Holy Spirit dwells within you is merely perfect openness, in which nothing is hidden, and therefore nothing is fearful. Attack will always yield to love if it is brought to love, not hidden from it. There is no darkness that the light of love will not dispel, unless it is concealed from love's beneficence. What is kept apart from love cannot share its healing power, because it has been separated off and kept in darkness. The sentinels of darkness watch over it carefully, and you who made these guardians of illusion out of nothing are now afraid of them. Okay. The quiet light in which the Holy Spirit dwells within you is merely perfect openness. Right, we go to that stately calm within, as they say. Right, we go to the mind, the right mind, and say, help me to see. All right. And there the Holy Spirit waits in perfect openness, in which nothing is hidden, all right, and nothing is fearful. Attack will always yield to love if it is brought to love, not hidden from it. So any thought of attack, all right, oh, he's an idiot. All right. I mean, how many times are we attacking other people, okay, other situations, all right, other countries, other nationalities, oh, it goes on and on, other religions, all right. But he says the attack will always yield to love. Okay, the first thing that was attacked was my true nature, right? In a metaphysical sense, it's the first thing that was attacked. I said, no, that's not me. I am not a thought in the mind of God. I'm independent. I'm an independent thinker. Right? That was the first attack. Okay? So if I bring that thought to the Holy Spirit, we can shine the light on it. And then we understand it, and it's no longer an attack, and I understand who I am. Okay? But until we get to that point, right, and you will, everything that we attack can be brought to that space in the mind and ask for the light to be shown on it. Help me to see. I mean, we can't, it is a certain part in the book, Jesus is talking about judgment. He goes, look, you cannot not judge. Right? He loves those double negatives just to make you stop and think. He says, you judge. That's what you do. Because you believe that you separated from God. You have wrapped yourself in this ego thought system, and that's what the ego thought system does. It looks out and judges. You evaluate, you judge. Okay, that's what the ego does. So don't increase guilt by saying, oh, there I go, judging again. It's just a matter of pointing at it and saying, oh, there it is again. I'm judging. I don't like the effects of that. Right? I don't like the effects. Bring that judgment Bring the judgment itself, whatever it is you're thinking, bring that to your inner sanctum and ask. Ask Jesus, ask Holy Spirit, help me to see this differently. I'm willing to have the light shined on it. Okay? And that's how we work our way back. Right? And he says, there is no darkness that the light of love will not dispel. Doesn't matter what you're thinking. Okay? Remember, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. So we can put it in these terms here. There is no order of difficulty in darkness. Right? Anything that is dark can be brought to the light and transformed. Okay? No matter how despicable your thought is. Right? Oh, it's so terrible, I don't want to tell anybody about it. Right? I'll just repress it and hopefully dissociate from it. Right? But that's not going to help. It's only going to reinforce the darkness. Right? And he's going to tell you there is no darkness that the light of love will not dispel, unless it is concealed from love's beneficence. So by hiding it, by not bringing it to Jesus and Holy Spirit, you're not taking advantage of the Holy Spirit's, of love's beneficence, of love's generosity, of love's well wishes. Okay. What is kept apart from love cannot share its healing power. So unless we look without judgment, unless we look at things and bring it and say, I want to see it differently. I want to see it correctly. All right? Unless you do that, all right, you can't share in the healing power of love. All right? Because you're keeping it separate and keeping it in darkness. And the sentinels of darkness watch over it carefully. All right? The sentinels of darkness, beginning with the idea that I separated, I sinned. And because I sinned, I'm now guilty. Right? And because I'm guilty, guilt demands punishment, so I'm afraid. Right? And then I project. Right? I project guilt onto others. I dissociate from what it is I'm afraid of. All these things. These are and ultimately the world is a defense. All right? Ultimately, the world is the sentinel. It's one of the big sentinels. All right? Guarding the darkness. All right? The world trying to prove that darkness is real. You separated, pal. You chose it. Now you got to live with it. So the sentinels of darkness watch over it carefully. And you who made these guardians of illusion out of nothing are now afraid of them. Right? So we're afraid of these sentinels that we made out of nothing. We made them up. They're all illusory. The world is illusory. Right? The idea that you're guilty of something is part of the illusion. The idea that you're separated from God is part of the illusion. Right? The projection of guilt is ridiculous. But we're afraid to look. We're afraid to look. We just keep going. Keep going. All right? Like the hamster in the wheel. All right? So it's when we stop at some point in our existence, we stop and say, there has to be a better way. And we start asking our inner guide to help us to see correctly. Shine the light on everything you think. Sometimes it's a good practice just to stop anytime and what thought was I on? What was I thinking? All right, and you could see what you're thinking. Right? And you can bring it for clarification. Help me to see correctly. All right? I mean, it could be the smallest thing. You know, you're walking down the street. I mean, there's plenty of things to judge and condemn as you walk down the street, especially in Manhattan. All right? Take, for example, I had to avoid being hit by a guy on a scooter, an electric scooter, which is all the rage now. And on the front of the electric scooter, standing in front of him, was a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old at most, holding on, having fun, not realizing that, you know, Daddy is scooting along 3rd Avenue, all right, and there I am. I look at it, I evaluate it, I judge it, and I project guilt onto it. All right, and that's only, you know, that's only 10 feet of my my sauntering through the city today. Right? So anytime, it's always, the ego is always ready to project guilt. Right? And by asking to see it correctly, you're asking to shine the light on the guilt, on the idea of separation. Okay? You're asking to see it correctly. So you're not pointing out the guilty party, because pointing out the guilty party keeps you outside that circle of innocence. All right? You're standing there you're on the scooter with him, pal. If you think he's doing the wrong thing. All right? Or he may be doing the wrong thing, but you're assigning adjectives to him. All right? Adjectives that would imply a lack of something or guilt of some sort. All right. And that keeps us outside of the awareness of our own innocence. Okay. Paragraph 3. Would you continue to give imagined power to these strange ideas of safety? Right? The sentinels of guilt. Sin, guilt, fear, projection, right? Dissociation, the world itself. Right? Would you continue to give imagined power to these strange ideas of safety? They are neither safe nor unsafe. They do not protect, neither do they attack. They do nothing at all, being nothing at all. As guardians of darkness and of ignorance, look to them only for fear. For what they keep obscure is fearful. But let them go, and what was fearful will be so no longer. Without protection of obscurity, only the light of love remains. For only this has meaning and can live in a light. Everything else must disappear. Okay. So this is, we maintain these guardians, you know. The world helps us maintain the idea that I separated from God, the sin. And the world will show me my shortcomings, what's wrong with me, that's part of the guilt. Right? I'm lacking something. And the fear of punishment, the fear of being found out, right? The fear of being exposed. Right? That's what the world does. All right? And he says, you know, would you continue to give these things power? Right? He says, they do nothing at all. Right? The world does nothing at all. And he says, because it is nothing at all. It's illusory. Right? And the way we find out about that is by bringing everything to our inner guide. Right? I'm getting the image now of we're younger in my imagination, but it doesn't matter. And we're walking through this kind of a jungle, right? And we don't know what anything is. And so we need a guide, and our guide is with us. All right? And we see, oh, what is that? I don't know what it is, so I'm afraid of it. So I ask my guide, help me. Tell me all about that. Shed some light on this for me. And then you understand. Right? And you can walk through the jungle until you're absolutely sure that the jungle is a dream. And you go back home and wake up with your Father. Alrighty then. So he says these imagined things here, they're neither safe nor unsafe. They do not protect, they do not attack. They do nothing at all, being nothing at all. As guardians of darkness and of ignorance, look to them only for fear. For what they keep obscure is fearful. What they keep obscure is your true self. Right? That's what they keep obscure. Right? And we get to that by realizing that it was my choice to believe all this. Okay? And that I can choose again. Right? But let them go, and the way we let them go is bringing them to the light. Let them go, and what was fearful will be so no longer. Without protection of obscurity, only the light of love remains. Right? For only this has meaning and can live in light. Right? Only love has meaning. Okay? So, I think there's, there you go. Just had the signal, Gene, please close the door. Maintenance likes to make noise with big machines. So, without protection of obscurity, only the light of love remains. And obscurity remains until we bring it into the mind and we ask Jesus, help me to see this correctly. Then only love remains. For only this has meaning and can live in the light. Everything else must disappear. All right? So little by little we bring things. You know, what's bothering you? What's making you scared? What's making you angry? You know, what's making you depressed? What's making you this, that? What you think is making you do these things. Right? Bring them. Don't keep them in the darkness. Bring them. There's no order of difficulty. One thing is not actually worse than the other. Everything is just the result of believing that you separated from your source, that you separated from God. But when we bring it to the light, obscurity is no longer a protection. These things are no longer protected, and they can disappear. They can go. Right? No matter how heavy you think it is. All right? If you ask, help me to see these things correctly, I really want peace of mind, then you'll be directed. That request will take the shape of your life. It'll take the shape of your story. Okay? Perhaps in the beginning it looks like going to therapy. All right? Until you feel safe enough to, every time the memories or whatever it is that pop up, you can simply point to them and say, okay, Jesus, help me see that correctly. Okay? Because we all think we're specific, so our requests, our prayers, so to speak, our communication with the right mind, with Jesus, it'll look specific, it'll look different. It'll take the shape of your life. Okay. Until we bring everything, and everything else disappears, except love. Love remains. Paragraph 4. Death yields to life simply because destruction is not true. The light of guiltlessness shines guilt away because, when they are brought together, the truth of one must make the falsity of the opposite perfectly clear. Keep not guilt and guiltlessness apart, for your belief that you can have them both is meaningless. All you have done by keeping them apart is lose their meaning by confusing them with one another, with each other. And so you do not realize that only one means anything. The other is wholly without sense of any kind. So death yields to life simply because destruction is not true. Jesus will tell you that's why he used the crucifixion as a demonstration. Right? Death is not true. He says, I didn't die. Right? The body, it's not true. Right? And we can look at it in that metaphor that Jesus uses. That death is the belief in separation. The belief that you're outside the mind of God. Right? He says that thought, it has to yield to life, which is the truth of who you are, that you can't leave the mind of God. So death yields to life because destruction is not true. Right? In other words, you can't destroy the connection you have with your Father. You can't destroy heaven. You can't destroy the oneness, even though you believe you did. Okay? Death yields to life. Right? This ego thought system will yield to the truth that you are innocent and pure as the day God thought of you. That's the truth. And that shines away all the nonsense. Excuse me. My throat gets dry and it forces me to cough. Pardon me. So, the light of guiltlessness shines guilt away because when they are brought together, the truth of one must make the falsity of its opposite perfectly clear. So we bring our thoughts to the right mind to have the truth shine on them, and the false has to disappear, has to be shown for what it is. Keep not guilt and guiltlessness apart. In other words, keep bringing your thoughts to your right mind. Keep bringing them to Jesus and to Holy Spirit. Have them retranslated. Right? Because if you think you can exist, you can just keep going on without doing that. He says you can't have them both. You can't do that. It's meaningless. All right. You know, some days you're good, some days you're bad. All right. all you have done by keeping them apart is lose their meaning by confusing them with one another, with each other. And so you do not realize that only one means anything. Right? Only guiltlessness means anything. The other is wholly without sense of any kind. Right? Guilt, he says, is totally senseless. He says, just ridiculous. The idea of guilt. He says, so bring it to the light. You know, and all these things that come under that big umbrella word of guilt, you know, you're lacking something, there's something wrong with you, and on and on and on. You know, you're the innocent victim of something, you're angry all the time. Right? Whatever. He says guilt it's senseless, it's ridiculous. So you keep bringing it. Help me to retranslate, help me to see the truth. And your life, it gets lighter and lighter, happier and happier. And even that is not the goal, but it happens. It's just something, it's just a benefit along the way. Right? It's like somebody handing you a cup of water in a marathon. Right? Not that I've ever experienced that, but I've seen it. Right? It's some kind of a respite. You know, you become happier, right? Until you realize that everything except love is valueless. Right? And you do it at your own pace. You know. But Jesus will always say, why wait? Why wait for heaven? Okay. Paragraph 5. You have regarded the separation as a means for breaking your communication with your Father. The Holy Spirit reinterprets it as a means of reestablishing what was not broken, but has been made obscure. All things you made have use to him for his most holy purpose. He knows you're not separate from God, but he perceives much in your mind that lets you think you are. All this and nothing else would he separate from you. The power of decision, which you made in place of the power of creation, he would teach you how to use on your own behalf. You who made it to crucify yourself must learn of him how to apply it to the holy cause of restoration. All right, so he's talking about the power of decision. The power of decision. Do I believe in separation? All right, or do I believe in the oneness? So the Holy Spirit knows. You have regarded the separation as a means for breaking your communication with your Father. All right, so we believe we no longer communicate with God. I mean, on that constant basis. All right? You may, occasionally ask for things, and that's what we sometimes think is communication with God. All right? As Dr. Wapnick would say, it's all right, do that. He says, you're on the right ladder, you're just on the bottom rung. Okay? And Jesus told Helen one time that you're coming to the ocean with a thimble. So, he says, you think you've broken communication with your Father. The Holy Spirit reinterprets it as a means of reestablishing what was not broken. Right? So, you haven't broken communication. You've just made it obscure. You don't realize that you're always communicating with your Father. It's obscure. You can't see it. Okay? Which is, the wonderful choice of words, obscurity. Can't be seen. All right? It's not broken. You just can't see it. All things you have made have use to him. Everything that we have made can be used by the Holy Spirit. Okay. For his most holy purpose, which is realizing our innocence and that we never left our Father. He knows you're not separate from God. But he perceives much in your mind that lets you think you are. All this and nothing else would he separate from you. So the Holy Spirit knows who we are, but he also knows all those things that we have in our mind that make us believe we're separated from God. He says that's what he would separate you from. Right? But you got to bring him. He doesn't do it automatically. All right? That's the respect for your mind, respect for your choice. All right? Jesus and the Holy Spirit don't come in and, with a no-knock warrant and start cleaning up your mind. All right? They don't do that. It has to be our choice. And you make it sooner or later. Believe me. You've already made it. You're just not aware of it. Okay. The power of decision, which you made in place of the power of creation. Right? He would teach you how to use it on your own behalf. Right? So instead of just extending total purity and oneness, right, we've made the decision making. Right? And he says, now the Holy Spirit, since you made that, Holy Spirit's going to show you how to use that decision-making on your own behalf. So we decide chaos, oneness, war, peace, all right, and so on down the road. The Holy Spirit will show us how to use the power of decision on our own behalf. You who made it, the power of decision, you who made it to crucify yourself, must learn of him how to apply it to the holy cause of restoration. All right, so we use that power of decision to crucify ourselves. We decided, oh yes, I'm separated from the mind of God. All right? That's the equivalent of the crucifixion. You're separated from the mind of God. You have killed the Son of God, so you think. All right? The Holy Spirit will teach you how to use that power of decision, right, to apply it to yourself for the holy cause of restoration. So we will learn more and more how to decide, I want to see the truth. I want to see correctly. I want peace. Right. That restores us to the awareness of who we are. Paragraph 6. You who speak in dark and devious symbols do not understand the language you have made. It has no meaning, for its purpose is not communication, but rather the disruption of communication. If the purpose of language is communication, how can this tongue mean anything? Yet even this strange and twisted effort to communicate through not communicating holds enough love to make it meaningful if its interpreter is not its maker. You who made it are but expressing conflict from which the Holy Spirit would release you. Leave what you would communicate to him. He will interpret it to you with perfect clarity, for he knows with whom you are in perfect communication. He says, you don't even understand the language that you've made, all right? You speak in dark and devious symbols, words. Words. At one point he says they're symbols of symbols that are twice removed from reality. All right? And this language has no meaning because its purpose is not communication. All right? We made languages in the ego system to keep us separate. How many languages are there? Even if you speak the same language, you might ask your significant other at some point, what language am I speaking? Because there's miscommunication going on. So this language, it's not for communication. And the idea of communication here is that union with your source, that union with your maker, with God, right? That union with the oneness, okay? That's actually what communication would break down to in its roots, all right? It's a union with the oneness, all right? But here, in this world, in this experience, we think we're communicating. But, it's like they say, two ships passing in the night at times. All right. Yet even this strange and twisted effort to communicate through not communicating holds enough love to make it meaningful. So even this, the Holy Spirit can use. Holy Spirit can use our words, our languages, if its interpreter is not its maker. So the Holy Spirit is the interpreter. He's not the maker of the language. All right, so we come to the Holy Spirit for guidance. All right. And if we need to say something, we'll be guided. Right? He will shine the light of love on our communication. All right? I mean, words are very useful in our experience, of course. So if we bring ourselves to the Holy Spirit, even our words can be used to help shine the light of love on everything. Right. Leave what you would communicate to him. He will interpret it to you with perfect clarity, for he knows with whom you are in perfect communication. So leave whatever it is you want to communicate, leave it to the Holy Spirit. Ask first. I just want to experience peace. I want to be the channel of love. All right, then go communicate. All right, because the Holy Spirit knows with whom you are in perfect communication. Paragraph 7. You know not what you say, and so you know not what is said to you. Yet your interpreter perceives the meaning in your alien language. He will not attempt to communicate the meaningless, but he will separate out all that has meaning, dropping off the rest and offering your true communication to those who would communicate as truly with you. You speak two languages at once, and this must lead to unintelligibility. Yet if one means nothing and the other everything, only the one that is possible for purposes of communication, only that one is possible. The one that means everything is possible for purposes of communication. The other but interferes with it. All right? So it's just using the example of language. All right? We can go on jibber-jabbering all our lives, all right? Thinking that we're communicating things and thinking that people are telling us things. All right? But when we go to the Holy Spirit and ask, help me, I want to be a channel of love. Then even the communication will be under that auspices, that even the communication will come under that request. All right? So in your words will be founded in love, in channeling love. All right? Because otherwise we're just off to the races, jibber-jabbering, and we're interfering with love. All right? So it's a conscious decision, as he said before. We're going to use that power of decision on our own behalf. We want to decide, yes, I want to experience peace. Right? I want the light. Right? Any way you want to put it. I want to see correctly. Okay, that's the choice. I no longer want the ego. We're saying no to the ego. Right? The ego interferes with communication. So the Holy Spirit's function, paragraph 8, the Holy Spirit's function is entirely communication. He therefore must remove whatever interferes with communication in order to restore it. Therefore, keep no source of interference from his sight, for he will not attack your sentinels, but bring them to him, and let his gentleness teach you that in the light they are not fearful, and cannot serve to guard the dark doors behind which nothing at all is carefully concealed. We must open all doors and let the light come streaming through. There are no hidden chambers in God's temple. Its gates are open wide to greet his Son. No one can fail to come where God has called him, if he chose not the door himself upon his Father's welcome, if he closed not the door on his Father's welcome. We got a combination of underlining things for 30 years and the diminishment of the light, right? So let's read that last sentence. No one can fail to come where God has called him, if he close not the door himself upon his Father's welcome. There's the idea of choice again. Right? He says no one can fail to come where God has called him. Right? Everyone is called. Okay? Everyone is called. And as the saying goes in the text, all are called. Few choose to listen. Okay? So everyone is called, and it's our choice. Right? Am I going to open the door, or am I going to close the door? All right? We must open all doors and let the light come streaming through. That's the idea of bringing all our thoughts to the Holy Spirit to be reinterpreted, to have the light shine on them so that we understand. And fear can't exist there. This whole world will not be fearful. Right? Remember, Jesus says if we're constantly living in the ego thought system, we are uncertain. We walk around the world uncertain, lonely, and in constant fear. If we bring our thoughts to the Holy Spirit to be reinterpreted, to have the light shined on them, by saying, help me to see correctly, right? Then the communication with your Father becomes more and more obvious. And he says the Holy Spirit's function is entirely communication. It's to reestablish, to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Okay? That's the Holy Spirit's job. We bring it to him. He's not going to judge your thoughts. He's going to say, oh, wow, how could you think that? Oh, man, that's really gross. Oh, you're a terrible person. You're sick. All right? None of that is coming up for him, okay? He's saying, okay, let's look at that. Let's shine away the obstacle to the awareness of love's presence. Let's shine that away. I'm really glad you brought that up. So he must remove whatever interferes with communication in order to restore it. So don't be afraid to bring whatever it is that you think is too shameful or too horrible, or, I don't want anybody to know about that. Nobody's going to know about it. You bring it to the Holy Spirit so that he can reestablish your communication with God. Therefore, keep no source of interference from his sight. Bring it all. Okay. Because we have to bring it. It has to be our choice. Because it says here, he will not attack your sentinels. All right? He will not attack your belief in separation. He will not attack your projections. He will not attack the world because you made it. What we do is we bring the world to him and say, help me see it correctly. And he goes, okay, I'm glad you came. And he helps us. It doesn't judge anything. Right? Let his gentleness teach you that in the light, these things aren't fearful. Whatever your thoughts are that you think are so horrible, or if you think the world is so horrible, right? He says, just bring them, and his gentleness will show you that it's not fearful. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. All right? And he says, but we must open all the doors and let the light come streaming through. Don't hesitate. There are no hidden chambers in God's temple. Its gates are open wide to greet his Son. So God's temple, the gates are open to greet you. All right? And no one can fail to come to God. All right? No one can fail to come to where God has called him. God is always calling you. God is always communicating with you. No one can fail unless you close the door yourself upon your Father's welcome. All righty then. The choice is ours. Okay, thank you. Let the light shine on all your thoughts. All right? And once you get used to it, it gets easier and easier. All right? You become more and more eager to do it. Right? You become that happy learner. Right? Because you're learning about your innocence more and more. And you're learning about your Father's love for you. Right? which becomes stronger and stronger as you open up the doors. All right, as you open the windows in the house to let it in. Okay. Happy trails to you. All right, and we'll until we meet again. All right, now, bye.